Over the weekend, we had a big fight that we need to react to that took place in Saudi Arabia. It saw a rematch for the unified heavyweight world titles between Oleksandr Usyk and Tyson Fury after their titanic battle back in May, which saw the Ukrainian emerge victorious that time around. And then on Saturday, Usyk secured another close points victory over the British fighter, with all three judges scoring it the way of 116 to 112. The man now who has an undefeated record of 23 professional wins. It was yet again another incredible performance by Oleksandr Usyk, Todd, who just has this incredible ice cold demeanor. You had that 11-minute stare down just a few days before in their pre-fight press conference, and he doesn't seem to get riled by anything, and it was shown in the ring once more.
Oh, no question, Natalie. I think the thing that we're all just missing, the elephant in the room, let's be honest, $100 million to each fighter. I will get in there and let Tyson Fury knock my block off. $100 million. No, but it's all the shenanigans that went on before. I mean, I think it was funny. The Usyk camp was saying, "Hey, we need Fury to trim that beard down a little bit," and then that carried into it. But from my perspective, I don't even think it was that close. I think Usyk definitely was the better fighter. I think he outpointed him. I think his boxing prowess just showed. And you look at the size difference. I mean, what are we talking about? 6 inches in height and reach. Weight was 50 pounds more going the way of Fury. So I think maybe this chapter has changed. I know a lot of my friends were saying, oh, we're going to see a Tyson Fury and Usyk part 3. And I just don't know if there's an appetite for that. I know in the States, a lot of this fight got lost because there was so much going on in the Americas with the college football playoff being launched. NFL was getting close to playoff time. NHL, NBA basketball. So it was in the mix, I will say that, but it definitely wasn't a top 3 story. But Edward, I don't know from your perspective, how did it play in your part of the world?
Yeah, I mean, it was a weird one, wasn't it? Because it didn't seem to be that many people in the arena either. It was about 27,000, I think. So it was very much a fight designed for pay per view rather than those who were coming down to watch us.
But there were
Unlike
some
say a
big names
Madison Square
there.
Garden kind of fight. Well, that is a good point. Yes. Also, of course, that very much helped the social media clips that were going around. Some celebrities, as you mentioned, um, the likes of Jason Statham, Neymar, Lennox Lewis, Vladimir Klitschko, of course, when it comes to boxing and fighting, Oscar De La Hoya as well. It was a good timing actually in Asia, which I can't say for a lot of worldwide events. But I think I mentioned this on a previous podcast. It doesn't resonate boxing as much as MMA does because that has a
Yeah.
lot more kind of Asian fighting elements in it. It was 6:45 o'clock in Singapore, 9:45 in the morning in Australia, and of course there was an Australian on the undercard as well in Dempsey McKean. Perhaps we'll get onto that later in terms of future contenders as well. But yeah, an interesting fight. Fury wasn't very happy with the result, though, was he, Nat?
No, he wasn't. He was not happy with the scoring at all. He thought it was much closer, and obviously he himself thought he'd won the fight. Like you, Todd, I sort of are on the side of the judges in the sense that I do think Alexander Usyk was the deserved winner. Perhaps some of the scorecards you could argue might have been a little bit closer, but all in all, I mean, Usyk has just delivered yet another masterclass because what he does is he seems to lull his opponents in because
Mhm.
Tyson Fury, it kind of mirrored the first. Tyson Fury started off well, but you get to around the 6th round mark, and that's when Usyk comes to the fore. That's when he sort of, as I say, lulls in his opponent, and he just delivers those blows that are important to get those judges' marks. So, yeah, I think Fury. When you're talking about what next, I think no doubt, of course, Fury will want another rematch. He'll want that opportunity to become the best of the best. But does Usyk need it? He's proven it
Yeah.
now twice that he can beat
Mm.
Fury, and if I was Usyk, I would just be sitting back and enjoying myself and being amongst my family, being able to chill for a bit because we know what it's like being a boxer. You've got so much camp's time that you've got to
Right.
concentrate on. So I definitely think if I was Usyk, I would just wait and see what happens amongst the rest of the heavyweights to see who his next opponent could be. Um, I imagine he'll want to take on the IBF world champion, who currently is Daniel Dubois, but he's going to take on Joseph Parker in February. And then, of course, he might want to then take on that winner to become once more the unified heavyweight world champion, Todd.
I think that's the key is the unified world title, and I think that's what people will wait for. Will Tyson Fury want another go at him? Absolutely, especially with that payday. But I think, Nat, to your point, I think Tyson Fury showed a penchant for, I don't want to say lack of cardio, but you get him, you drag him into the deep end of a championship fight, and I think that's where he really struggles. Is he still a great fighter? Yeah, absolutely. And is he still a draw? Yes. But I think the consumer's appetite to do a pay-per-view or to even watch a fight again, I think it's just going to play out the same way, even with Fury's size advantage, reach advantage, and all that. I just don't know if it's in the cards. And I think what you said, Natalie, was exactly right. I think if you're Usyk, you're in what we call the catbird seat. He can sit back now and pick and choose what he wants. He doesn't have to take hey, I beat you twice. What do you want me to do? He's going to look and see what's the best for him. And I think the best thing for boxing would obviously be unifying it all. And I think that's what people would like to see.
Yeah, of course, Dubois did challenge Usyk to a rematch in the ring after the fight, didn't he?
Yeah.
And it
Of course
seemed to
he
be,
did.
well, of course he did, yeah. But he wants revenge, doesn't he? It was 2023 when he lost to the Ukrainian, and that was marred by what some seem to think was a pretty tight call and a low blow. So I think they'll be watching that 22nd of Feb fight between Dubois and Parker and seeing who wins that one. And then I think that'll have a huge bearing on who fights Usyk next, if Usyk decides to fight again. But then, of course, for Fury, are we going to get now that all-British battle that we seem to have been waiting for years and years and years between himself and Anthony Joshua? I don't know if it kind of helps now that they're both kind of licking their wounds, both Joshua and Fury. They both lost titles recently. Perhaps it'll be a bit easier to have that fight now.
I think people will watch it. I mean, I think they'll watch it, especially that fight, the all-British fight. I think people would definitely watch that. Would it be a huge draw and an impact on the sport? I don't think so. But yes, people will watch.
Yeah, I think you're right, Todd. I think there's no real obstacles now for AJ Fury to not happen, because in the past it might have been because, well, Fury's won a title, so he wants to take on another title holder to see if he can win another belt. And it just always seemed they were never going to make their diaries work. But yet it feels like now both have a point to prove, because they both lost their most recent fights, with Joshua losing to Dubois, and then, of course, as we've just been speaking, Fury losing to Usyk. So in terms of an all-British bout, it is what everyone wants to see, although slightly it might have lost its allure that it might once had a few years ago, for sure. But what we can say about what we saw in Saudi Arabia is that Fury and Usyk, I think, have really helped to transform the heavyweight division once more, because I think a lot of question marks were being raised about the heavyweight division, because we weren't seeing the big fights anymore. We were kind of seeing, as I say, them sort of skirting around who they were going to fight, and we were seeing MMA fighters come into the ring. And I know actually Francis Ngannou did really well against AJ and against Fury as well, but they weren't the fights people wanted to see. We wanted to actually see Fury against AJ a long time ago. So what we've seen now with this huge fight with Usyk and Fury is that they've brought back the heavyweight division to the pinnacle of boxing, I feel.
Two questions for you guys. And the first one, was it a Christmas gift? I don't think so. And I think we talked about the judging in this last fight. And the second question I have for both of you is boxing in a good place? I mean, Edward talked about how MMA has such a bigger draw now in Southeast Asia and his part of the world, Oceania, with the Muay Thai and that kind of influence. But do you guys think boxing is back, and you're not old enough to remember the glory days, as I call them, with Tyson and Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Leonard, and with boxing was just a must-see thing? Has it been watered down? So first of all, we'll start with a Christmas gift. Who thinks it was a Christmas gift, and who thinks it was legit? I think it was a legit call. I think Usyk won the fight fair and square.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Fury was kind of required to complain a little bit, wasn't he? Because he's not a kind of man to graciously accept defeat. But yeah, I think the result was a right one. In terms of where does boxing go from here? I mean, it is sad if we do get the AJ Fury fight that it does seem like it wouldn't have the cachet that it would have had a few years ago. Not to say that the ship has sailed. I think going back to Todd's favorite fight ever, the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul one, there's 60 million people tuned in for that, then, even past their prime versions of Fury and Joshua will definitely get a lot of bums on seats and a lot of eyeballs on the match, especially because they really don't like each other, or so it seems. And AJ is normally quite a modest man, a lot of humility, doesn't really get drawn into arguments, but he seems to be really annoyed by Fury when they meet.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Probably because they want to be the best of the best in Britain, certainly, and then the best in the world. And unfortunately, I don't think AJ is ever going to get back to being in contention to being the best of the best when it comes to the world heavyweights. But I agree with you both. It was certainly not a Christmas gift for Usyk. I think Usyk was the better fighter at the end of the day, because he repeated what he did in the first, exactly the same. I don't think the fight lived up to the hype like the first one did, but I think the first one was the OG because it was the OG, and also because they had 4 belts on the line for that one, whereas we only had 3 this time around because Usyk, of course, had to give up his IBF title when he didn't take up that mandatory challenger that the IBF division wanted him to face because he wanted to face Fury once more. So, yeah, definitely not a Christmas gift. And what next? Well, I'm sure Fury will be desperate for a trilogy, but I just don't see the need for it from an Usyk perspective. What was interesting as well, I'm listening in to reaction from that fight in Saudi Arabia. The former world lightweight champion Anthony Crolla was saying if he was Usyk, he might have actually said, put the gloves in the ring, call it a day, because you've done everything you need to do in boxing. Because let's not forget, he was a cruiserweight world champion too. He said he's going to be living in immortality when it comes to the boxing world as well because of everything he's done. So why not just hang your boxing gloves up and walk out with your head held high? And maybe that's another thing for Usyk to consider. Although he has also teased that he could move back down to the cruiserweight division as well. So we have to wait to see what Usyk's going to do. But he is a man who has that luxury to do whatever he wants.